That having been said, our theme for this month is love in action. Last week I talked about conditional love and unconditional love. Today the topic is the window of the heart. And as we embarked on this journey of love in action last week by talking about those similarities and differences between unconditional and conditional love, its counterpart, for those of you who were at either one of our midweek gatherings, you know that the topic continued to be discussed. And sometimes with great enthusiasm or emotion. In other words, we stirred the pot a little bit with that, and that's a good thing. So rest assured that the questions that you asked in those midweek gatherings have been noticed, that your understanding has been acknowledged at whatever level that's working for you right now, because we are all perfect, whole, and complete at whatever level we are in consciousness. The opportunity to raise that consciousness comes from the kind of dialogues that we do in our midweek gatherings, and coming together, sharing, standing in the light, as well as these talks. These are just a part of that. But those questions that you still have about conditional and unconditional love will be addressed during the rest of this series this month. And anything I miss can be raised again on the last Sunday of the month when we do a Q&A service, a questions and answer service. And we don't record that one. So we can talk openly in dialogue at that time. But today I want to talk about the window of the heart, a special window of the heart, which is the process we call mothering. I'd like to dedicate this talk, actually, in honor of Mother's Day, and to begin by tracing the history of this holiday. Those of you who've been attending here for a while know that when I first came here about 4 years ago, I did a similar talk with regard to the history of Mother's Day. So if this sounds somewhat familiar to you, that's because it is. But now that we are recording each Sunday's talks and posting them on YouTube, it's unlikely that you'll hear repetition once again. So in case you recognize this, you won't hear it again other than on YouTube. And if you don't recognize it, you probably need to hear it again. So some historians claim that the predecessor to our Mother's Day holiday was the ancient spring festival dedicated to mother goddesses. Those ceremonies can be traced clear back to BCE, before the Common Era, some 250 years. And those celebrations often lasted for 3 days or more. Well, here in Hawaii, that's no big deal, right? We do that all the time. So if you want to continue celebrating Mother's Day tomorrow and Tuesday, go right ahead. Or if you already started on Aloha Friday, this is just the culmination, yeah? So in the early 1600s in England, they began what was called Mothering Sunday. And it was promoted by the Church of England, which was then called the Mother Church. And it was substituted for those ancient mother goddesses. Isn't that interesting how that began to morph in that way? People were expected to visit the church of their baptism on that holiday and to bring offerings to the church as they did so. I wonder if they brought brownies and cupcakes. That's probably about as close as we're going to get to those things that they did. And then when they would return home, they would bring their mother small gifts and what they called a mothering cake, which was a sweet pancake or a very rich fruit cake. Now you know why your mother always made fruit cakes, because that was part of the process. In the U.S., however, we didn't start with the concept of Mother's Day until the early 1900s. And there was an unmarried woman, Anna Jarvis, who began a letter-writing campaign to stimulate interest in a holiday for mothers. She was very devoted to her mother, Anna, and thought some kind of recognition for mothers was needed. So she gained the support of influential ministers, businessmen, congressmen. She sold her product. And that creating a holiday for mothers would increase respect for parents, would strengthen family bonds, and would encourage children to appreciate their mothers while they were still around to experience it. Nice thought. First Mother's Day observances in this country were during church services in Grafton, Virginia in the early 1900s. By 1910, the state of West Virginia had declared it an official holiday. And within a year, so did every other state in the United States. It was such a good idea. It caught on very quickly. 3 years later, in 1914, the U.S. Congress designated the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. And by then, it was also being observed in many other countries around the world. So from ancient times to the present, mothers have been celebrated for the million things they gave us, for the million tears they shed for us, for the million times they defended us. In your mother's heart, you are always her pride and joy, her child. Even though your hair turns as white as hers, and your own children are raising children of their own. I've come to the realization that my own mother really was one in a million. In fact, I probably thought that long before I thought about what that really meant. How about yours? And like me, I'll bet you have a million or more rich or entertaining stories to tell about her or to describe her. My mother has moved on now, which is why I'm safe in talking like this. And I often wonder if those that she's with now recognize what a treasure she truly is. My mom had a million or more opinions. And she knew how to impress them on those around her. She was never at a loss for words. And some of the examples I remember, this is my mother speaking on logic. If you fall off that swing and you break your neck, you can't go to the store with me. On humor, she said, when that lawnmower cuts off your toe, don't come running to me. Or on meeting a challenge, what were you thinking? Answer me when I talk to you. Don't you talk back to me. And that was all said in one breath. I can't do it that way. On becoming an adult, if you don't eat those vegetables, you'll never grow up. Or on physiology, if you don't stop crossing your eyes like that, they're going to freeze that way. I think most of us heard that. Or on extrasensory perception, which she didn't even know existed. She just practiced it. Put your sweater on. Don't you think I know when you're cold? How about on genetics? You're just like your father. On anticipation, you just wait till your father gets home. You'll notice I don't usually use my index finger to emphasize things. But when I talk about my mother, here's my all-time favorite, my mother's idea of justice. One of these days, you will have children of your own, Jenny. She always called me Jenny. One day you'll have children of your own, and if they turn out like you, then you'll know and appreciate what I've been through. And I was a good child. Well, our mothers are a treasure trove of love, caring, opinions, guidance, and humanness. They understand that what a child doesn't say as well or sometimes better than what a child does say. They know that a child's growth is not measured by height or the grade level in school. It's marked by the progression from mama to mommy to mom, or in my family, as my girls became teenagers, mother. Mothers learn to accept the unique and individual being that their child is, as that child learns to accept the rare, wonderful, and mysterious person a parent is. And mothers understand somehow that on days that they are so tense from their kids' behaviors and constant energy that they get a headache, they just need to do what it says on the aspirin bottle. Take 2 and keep away from children. So in the 364 days of the year that are not the holiday called Mother's Day, what each Mother's Day looks like depends on the mother involved. There are limitless possibilities, 1 million or more of them actually, for practicing the art and science of motherhood. Many of them include birthing a child, but a part of motherhood, not the whole enchilada. For to mother is to nurture. And that's a concept which begins after a new soul has showed up here. Contained within each one of us is, whether female or male, is the ability to nurture, to care for, to comfort, to love. So, though we celebrate today in honor of Mother, perhaps we can also take some time to honor the attributes of mothering that exist within all of us. That this is a window on the heart to nurturing one another. I just think it's our job to keep looking for and looking at the myriad of ways that each of us can and does practice mothering, especially children. These ways don't have to be heroic. They don't have to be dramatic or even noteworthy, because this is a role that we play every hour of every day. What a Mother's Day looks like is seldom heroic or dramatic or even noteworthy. It's just that when you add all those days up, and when you look at what they have produced in your progeny or the progeny of others, those around you, that you realize the value, the importance, the specialness of each day's contribution. So where do we start in this process of becoming a mother or the mother? You know, not too many colleges or universities have a major in mothering, do they? I haven't even seen caring and nurturing as a major in any college directories. Once in a while, a community or social service group will offer a workshop or a seminar on something called maybe effective parenting or loving relationships or mommy and me swimming lessons. But seldom, if ever, do we find a course of study intended to train us, to guide us, to develop us in the million or more traits and actions that go together to make up mothering. There are some self-help books, especially on Amazon.com these days, because everything is on Amazon.com these days. And if you're a daytime TV watcher, certainly many of Oprah's programs and even some of Dr. Phil's have some pretty savvy guest experts on occasionally. There are some self-help book information. There is some self-help book information on a book called The Family Virtues Guide. And this is a book which is frequently used by the youth departments in our larger churches. There are 52 attributes identified in that book and explained, all of which apply to nurturing, caring for, comforting, and loving. If you're interested in that book, we can order that for you through Divorce Publishing. You may not have young children of your own. You may have grandchildren or neighbors who might be interested in this. It's a very down-to-earth guide. It also talks about how to utilize and apply those attributes, which truly are the qualities of being of God that are passed on to each of us in the process of creation. So this is not only for children, it's for children with children and grandchildren. So it's a wonderful place to start in the window of our hearts into more ways that mothering can play out in the relationship between a parent and a child. And it's a wonderful place to start in our own development of those attributes so that we can be examples of them to those around us, not just our children, but all children, and all children of the creative source of being that we call spirit. So every moment you spend developing your own spiritual maturity and growth is also a moment where you are developing your ability to nurture others, to be an example for others. Each time you acknowledge your own abilities, your own self-worth, your own divinity enables you to see that in others, children included, and to honor that, to respect that, to encourage that in others, especially in children. And each time that you choose kindness and understanding over judgment or criticism, you send a message of love, compassion, and acceptance to those around you. These are ways that we can model what is important to us and to demonstrate their importance in life. These are ways that we can cause discipline to become focused effort instead, and example rather than punishment and exclusion. So I choose to think that all of us are looking for ways to guide children into becoming loving, productive, caring, expressive, successful adults. I believe all of us want to see children raised and treated with respect, with tenderness, with understanding, and with encouragement. And I believe that we want to see the same things in our children, in fact, all children, as they grow into adulthood, into becoming parents themselves. Because you can see then that we all have the opportunity to change the world by honoring within ourselves the definition of a mother, to give birth to something, to be the origin or the source of something, to nurture, look after, and to care for. We create this within ourselves and then send that forth into the world around us on this special day and every day. And that quality of being that I call mothering is in every spiritual being having a human experience. Whether we are male or female, masculine or feminine, we all have that within us as we parent and raise future generations. And so it is.
And so it is.